Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Akash Weekly Twitter Spaces. I'm Nadia Bajuelo, Community Events Manager here at Overclock Labs. I hope all of you listening now or watching later are having a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you're joining from. As always, thank you to you guys, the amazing Akash community. There is so much that you do to share, support, and build this community. I really love seeing the support among everyone in it. With that, let's get started with today's spaces. Greg will kick us off with updates and news. After updates, we'll give you guys a full introduction to our guest today, James Friel, Director of Business Development at Axelar. During our guest segment, we'll be talking to James about the latest at Axelar. We'll move on to a short discussion with both James and Greg on the importance of interoperability for Web3 to scale. And we'll wrap up with an AMA with Greg and our guest. As mentioned, we'll give a proper introduction and welcome to James just after updates. But for right now, let's hand it off to the man of the hour and CEO of Overclock Labs, Greg Osuri. Take it away, Greg.
Sorry. Hey, thank you so much, Nadia. Really good to be back here for another set of amazing updates from Akash team. Love these community calls every week. Without fail, we've been getting it out since July. It's been one of the best things that's been happening. So this week, our big effort was to push Mainnet 4. Yeah, it's coming in 2 weeks. We're on schedule. All bugs and all major issues have been resolved by the Akash core team as well as the validators. We are also really cool thing. I think we this upgrade we were able to push a lot of our technical agenda forward, right? So I mean, to remind folks what's coming, the big feature is really the IP address marketplace. This is the first ever open marketplace for IP addresses there is in the world. It's very unique. And now we're starting to scratch the surface from like, hey, we always talked about getting to parity with the current cloud, but now we're starting to get into superiority sort of thing, right? So yes, IP addresses are very integral to get to parity, but open IP addresses market is definitely non-existent and it's very unique to Akash. So we're really excited to the possibilities this new feature is going to bring. Right off the bat, I can think about incredible use cases. One being able to host full nodes like Solana or Bitcoin nodes where they require fixed ports, or even amazing nodes like Urbit. So Urbit is an up and coming Web3 protocol. It's phenomenal. It's really built from ground up. They imagine how data should be maintained. It does not have a token, so don't go ape into this Urbit thing and probably get yourself in trouble by buying a fake one. But Urbit, I'm super bullish on. I always like the idea of owning my own data. Urbit is sort of delivering that. And Akash will be the first decentralized cloud to be able to run Urbit. So I think with Mainnet 4, we're going to see a lot of new interesting use cases I'm super excited about. We also happen to use Cosmovisor. Cosmovisor is a tool that's built to automate upgrades better. So the idea behind Cosmovisor is you can have a automated way for you to patch up for validators to essentially patch updates that makes us move faster for future upgrades. So we are able to successfully test Cosmovisor in with this update simulations. I'm really excited to see Cosmovisor go into production at Akash. I believe Osmosis is using Cosmovisor as well, so it's good to join the ranks. And another big update that we're coming with 400 minute for is interchain accounts, right? So I'm really excited about interchain accounts. Interchain accounts allows any Cosmos or IBC chain to be able to perform operations directly in Akash without needing an Akash account. So this is again another amazing step towards composability. And this is going to be very unique in Cosmos ecosystem. So soon enough, you'll be able to see DAOs and Juno directly deploy on Akash and DAOs, or even secret smart contracts deployed directly on Akash. Now we get into privacy for deployment. So we're going to open up a whole new set of opportunities for folks to develop on Akash with Mainnet 4. and we are 2 weeks away. Away from Mainnet 4. By this week end, we should have a proposal with the binary, with the code freeze, all ready to go. So that's a big milestone. And then we all know it's a 1 week wait period for the proposal to pass through the governance. Once that happens, we'll be able to get Mainnet 4 in production. Again, Mainnet 4 is one step towards what our next biggest update, perhaps since the launch of the protocol, which is going to be a GPU marketplace. And we've been talking about for years on out now. It's finally starting to come together. And Mainnet 4 is the first prerequisite for us to be able to deliver the GPUs. The spec is ready, the work is happening. It's really exciting to see the GPUs working. Again, GPUs have been such an amazing resource that has always been constrained because of machine learning and AI. And we're seeing a lot of machine learning and AI adoption happening. A lot of the stuff is happening from the art world, from the creator world. I don't know how many of you have been experimenting with Playground AI or Stable Diffusion or Wally to generate images. I think uh, I'm starting to use it. I love it personally as a storyteller, as a creator. I think this text to image generation is going to unlock a new era of art and creativity. And this just needs a lot of compute. We as a society do not have enough GPUs to serve the needs of even immediate adoption for AI. So I'm super bullish on Akash supporting GPUs, thereby giving a world where we have AI that's much affordable, much cheaper. So I'm super excited. We've been talking to a lot of folks here. I think I mean, it's such a validation that we get on a daily basis from a lot of folks using doing machine learning, and I'm really stoked for machine. So that's coming up, and Mainnet 4 is a precursor for that. So I'm one step closer to machine learning, and it's very exciting. From the ecosystems, Cloudmos has been amazing at shipping features. They're not foreign to shipping features, but this new feature is really good. It's essentially alerts. In the generic, it's a generic alert system for all Cosmos chains, but in particular Akash, because of course Cloudmos is a Akash deployment tool. So one feature I've been always wanting is an ability to get a notification every time my deployments are going to are going to run out of funds, and I need to top it up in order to keep my deployments open. So this feature allows me to do so. I get a nice email saying that, hey, I'll be running out of funds, and I may only have, I don't know, 2 days to left in my deployment. So go ahead and deploy or deposit funds. I mean, it's basic features that you expect in a Web 2 system are missing in Web 3, and CloudMOS is taking one step of bridging the gap. Like engagement, the lack of engagement infrastructure in Web3 is extremely frustrating for product builders, right? That causes a lot of churn. Churn is essentially people moving away from Akash because, a big problem with Akash we see today is, so if I come and use an Akash, I deposit some AKT tokens in the escrow, and I forget about it. I don't go check my deployments because, who does, right? Who does check on the deployments every day? And more often than not, I forget that I need to deposit more. It's like parking meter. You forget to put more money in your parking meter. I always have the problem unless I put a timer or something, right? So this CloudMos alert. Now, what happens if I run out is I run out of money, the deployment goes away, and I have no idea why my deployment went away. And I end up being very frustrated with Akash because Akash effectively failed me, even though the error is on the user. So CloudMos alert systems allows us to be able to get a notification out to the user, to prevent this. It's just like having your parking meter send you a notification every time you're running out of money, right? So just imagine how convenient a feature like that is going to be. And I'm love to see ecosystem take effort, take the lead to deliver such critical features for Akash adoption. And this is one of the critical things for Akash, being a decentralized system is that we as a company, Overclock Labs, as a company that created Akash, does not have to be necessarily the company that evolves Akash. Cloudmos, Peron, Pixelar, a lot of these amazing tools make Akash what it is. And that brings to the Akash update Alani has been giving on YouTube. If you haven't, please go check it out. Alani gives you an amazing walkthrough end to end as to what's happening for ecosystem. Ecosystem one is one of the critical pillars for Akash, and a lot of the work, a lot of the features you're seeing on Akash these days is built by the ecosystem. While the core team focuses on core functionality, ecosystem focuses on all the amazing user interaction functionality that gets Akash the adoption it deserves. So lots of really good updates. Go check out Alani's amazing YouTube video that he published last week to get a full length, preview of everything that's happening on Akash. Talking about ecosystem, Chia has been in the news recently for the fact that World Bank is using or planning to build an open source carbon offset registry on Chia. I mean, this is an amazing feat. Like, regardless of what you have, from the political sphere, or what World Bank is or what World Bank not, this is the first example of a major global institution embracing crypto for green. I mean, that's unheard of. And if any conversation you would have heard about European politicians, crypto is not green or not, eco-friendly. But World Bank is using crypto for tracking carbon credits. So this is a fundamental shift in conversation, and I think people don't talk about such important things because they think World Bank is evil, yada yada yada. It doesn't matter. If we want crypto and we want Web3 to have mainstream adoption, you need folks, like institutional folks, adopting crypto for the right reasons. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful news for Chia to be able to, penetrate. I was thinking too, like from a positioning standpoint, this is fantastic, right? So any conversation right now that is happening at the political sphere, the legislative and the regulatory sphere, a big part of that is why crypto is not environmentally friendly, which is fundamentally wrong. Even if you strip down Bitcoin and if you can make the argument, you can justify it. But hey, using Chia and Chia being used to track global carbon credit can be any better example as to how crypto is actually helping not only green, but it's actually helping the world get green. So, which is amazing news. Go check it out. It's on my Twitter. It's also in our weekly blog that we do or a Twitter thread we do about all the updates. Go check it out from there. And I'm personally excited. And those of you that don't know Chia, a lot of the Chia miners use Akash, and it's getting better and better. And also check out Evergreen Miner that's coming out. If you haven't, Evergreen is a miner, a that runs Akash that you can actually purchase and plug in your home. So when you're not using the miner, it essentially runs Akash software and it mines Chia for you. So it's amazing piece of hardware. Another example as to why grassroots permissionless innovation really takes off. I've seen it work. I'm actually going to start mining a lot of Chia on Akash. And by the way, Chia is the Akash is the most optimal place to run Chia. So Chia has this concept of plots, which takes the computationally heavy stuff away from the consensus mechanism. It makes it a lot more greener. And the plots are essentially are the expensive ones. So if you try to plot on the classic cloud, the traditional cloud, or the trad cloud, it costs about 40 cents. On Akash, it costs about 10 cents. So Akash is the most cost optimized platform to generate Chia plots. Go check it out. There's also a blog on Chia's website talking about how Akash is powering them, how Akash is great for Chia. So yes, I love to see Akash powered, applications like Chia taking off in World Bank. Akash is powering applications in DoD that's actually starting to gain a lot of steam. So Akash, as you can see, is starting to play a very critical role in the future of mainstream adoption for crypto, which is really good news, right? And talking about our DoD, last week we did a wonderful spaces. If you had a chance to check it out, go check it out. It talks about it's we had the Marine officer who went and implemented Akash in the DoD, which ended up winning the hackathon, talked about in detail as to how they were able to use Akash, why they were using Akash and Secret Network, and a full length record on Twitter Spaces is beautiful just to see the use cases, and also talking about potentially how future military personnel can use Akash. So. And another incredible application that uses Akash and Secret Network is Alter DApp. Alter is um, you know, um, a decentralized messaging system that uses Akash Secret for privacy and end-to-end encryption, and Akash for delivery of those messages, right? They've made a lot of progress, and go check it out. It's I think they're launching very very soon. There's also spaces on their recent updates to give you a better idea as to what's happening. And finally, the most important, one of the critical events that happened last week was DHH, or DHH is the creator of Ruby on Rails, right? DHH, Ruby on Rails, for those of you who don't know, really built Web 2. Like it is the foundation that Twitter, Shopify, a lot of the websites that came after Facebook were built on Ruby on Rails, the technology created by DHH. So David here basically wrote a blog post as to why they're leaving the cloud. It's amazing to see this because this is our thesis. Akash has been on this run as to why cloud is not the great, the traditional cloud is not the best for growth stage companies because it is cost prohibitive, right? So cloud is great for bootstrapping. When you don't know what you're doing, it's great to get started. It's great to scale quickly. But once you have an idea, once you have consistency in your business operation, clouds gets very cost prohibitive. And DHS wrote an amazing blog post as to why. And he also talks about how the internet was built to be not centralized, and how AWS and others are, while they're raking in enormous profits, they're actually hurting the design of the web. I mean, this is, if you look at if you read a white paper from 2018, the 17 timeframe, if you look at any of my talks that I gave over these years, talk exactly what DHH has been talking about. And this is a proof point that there is a repatriation of the data center, and folks that built the Web 2 are now moving away from the cloud to their own data centers. Of course, the challenge with moving to your own data centers is you lose the flexibility of being able to scale quickly and also have a more control on your costs. And that's where Akash comes into play. Akash lets you be sovereign at scale, right? So Akash lets, I mean, I'm going to repeat this because this is going to be the tagline. I think it's very important. Akash lets you be sovereign at scale. So Akash lets you have your own data center and while being able to tap into a vast resource network of data centers that are available to you at your fingertips in a permissionless manner that is priced in an open setting. So price optimized scalability with sovereignty is what Akash really offers. And DHS blog post is a amazing testament and a validation of our thesis that we've been building for years and out. And that's going to be the trend, my friends. We're going to be able to move a lot of these Web2 workloads like GHS workloads onto Akash as soon as we get to maturity, and it's starting to happen right now. So with that, I'm going to leave it to Nadia here and welcome our amazing guest, James, for the rest of the conversation.
Thanks so much, Greg. Our special guest today is James Friel, Director of Business Development at Axelar. James has spent 7 years in sales and operations with an MBA from the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth and a BA from Trinity College. Before joining the Web3 world, he was Director of Partnerships at global media brand Time, with 4 years before that spent at Bloomberg. Welcome, James. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, so excited to have you. So one of the things Axelar has said is that using Web3 today is like sending email in the 80s. So we're super excited to hear about what Axelar is doing about that. Can you start us off with an overview of Axelar. What does Axelar do and why do you do it?
Absolutely. We'll start high level and then, of course, let's get into it. But Axelar powers the cross-chain future by delivering secure cross-chain communication. And so what that really means is that, decentralized application users can interact with any asset, any application on any chain with one click. You can think of it as the Stripe for Web3.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you walk us through your roadmap and where you're at today? In particular, you guys have hit many milestones in 2022 during a bear market. Could you share a few of those and why they're such big milestones?
Yeah, absolutely. So Axelar reached Mainnet in February of this last year. And part of the interesting thing that, Axelar is rooted around is that we ourselves are a blockchain. So we are a blockchain connecting blockchains. And when a lot of people think of bridges and these intermediaries that are either able to pass assets or in some cases like Axelar, arbitrary messages, they tend to have a centralized architecture. And so Axelar actually, users, everyone can go to axelarscan.io. We have a public block explorer and see a lot of the developments here. So at the moment, we've connected 27 chains, a lot of Cosmos-based chains because we're a Tendermint SDK-based blockchain, as well as EVM chains. So to date, we've processed over 260,000 transfers and almost 1.5 billion in volume. And we had our token launch on September 27th. So we have finally kind of taken that next big step towards being a permissionless set of validators that are validating these cross-chain messages. Really exciting stuff for us.
Awesome. So most chains today drive innovation internally within their ecosystem first. How is Axelar driving innovation internally while still being cognizant of the need to drive innovation externally?
So I think this is a really interesting question specifically for what we do, right? And if you think about cross-chain messaging and the ability to use what we've coined generalized message passing, this ability not just to send assets or NFTs across the network, but information, there's some really interesting use cases that externally we want people to be thinking about with something internally that we've already built. And so there's so much growth that can come through that. But at the same time, like your question is suggesting, we can't stop at that. We have to be thinking internally as well about what is the next development. How do we support developers? How do we support users to create greater simplicity and further abstract away some of this clunkiness in the infrastructure of Web3? So I don't know. We can go into detail a couple of things that we're thinking about, but I think we are certainly thinking about that balance of making sure that we are not resting on what we've created thus far and innovating internally as much as we're pushing for it externally.
Awesome. We know one of the things that you just launched actually is a validator program. What's the current status of that validator program and where do you see it in the next 6 months, the next 12 months?
Yep. So Alani's been fantastic in helping us, think about how you have a robust program. And we had what we coined our Genesis program, and we were kind of moving into phase 2. So now that we've had this successful launch, we had capped the mainnet validators at 50. We'll be looking to this next phase, which will include increasing that number to 75 on mainnet, as well as thinking about how we can get validators more involved in what we're doing. And so some of that is kind of, I think, where this conversation is going to go, in fact.
Awesome. We also do want to ask you a little bit about your experience with Akash, but before we jump into that, what's next for Axelar? What should we look out for? Is there some of that detail you referenced that you want to throw in there for us?
Yeah, I think two things that are really exciting for the community. One, we're going to see this generalized message passing between EVM and Cosmos available soon. From EVM to EVM is available now. I think Greg even referenced interchain accounts earlier, which are a necessary step. So I think once we're able to do generalized message passing properly throughout, from any of the chains that we connect, this is going to create some really interesting features and use cases for developers. So I think that's certainly one, and that should be out before year end, if not kind of sooner. Then we're working right now on connecting, I said a lot of Cosmos and a lot of EVM chains, connecting some really, exciting new ones that are based on new smart contract languages. That includes the Move chains in Sui and Aptos, as well as, some Rust and ZK based chains. And so it'll be really cool to see complete composability throughout the network as messages are, deriving from one language, and by the time they're reaching Akash on the other end, they're, completely readable and easy for developers and users to understand.
Awesome. So it's always quite fun for us to talk to our guests about how they heard about Akash. It's always a cool story or a fun story or interesting. So how did you first hear about Akash?
Yeah, I guess this is a pretty good one. Boz, who hopefully your whole community knows, COO at Akash, stopped by an Axelar side event that we were having down in Austin at Consensus. And I think, we had reached out about talking and we hit it off. And so I think, we started with the business, we got to know each other, and we decided, beyond maybe some simple use cases, how can we help bridge in assets that are necessary or use generalized message passing to help Akash onboard users that own non-native assets? What else can we do? Let's really stretch our thinking here. And so I think that's actually what we're going to get into, which is an interest in how can we get an Axelar validator to run a node on the Akash network.
Awesome. Yeah, they always are good stories. So how has your experience with Akash been so far? What are your plans from here? And how do you envision this partnership scaling over the next 6 months, 8 months?
So I think, honestly, it runs perfectly in line with the developments that we were talking about. I think our hope in the near term is that we might be able to identify a party that's validating for both Akash and Axelar and has a vested interest in seeing us be able to take advantage of the Akash marketplace and run a node there. And then once generalized message passing between EVM and Cosmos is available, we should be able to create this one-click experience where users that own non-native assets to Akash would be able to come in, click, and compute. And what we're doing on the back end is helping away the swaps necessary without the user having to jump through those loops. And I think this could be really exciting for the development of the Akash marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting. So a question for you. Over here at Akash, our ecosystem is thriving with projects building like Cloudmos and Praetor and others. Are there any notable projects within the Axelar ecosystem that you'd like to share with the Akash community and the Cosmos community at large?
Yeah, so it's an important distinction that I want to make to say that Axelar is an overlay network. So we don't have a smart contract platform in the way that we're not in a system necessarily of applications that are being built on top of our chain. Applications can be built with our APIs or SDKs integrated, and then they choose another layer one where they want to deploy. But with that said, there are still some applications that have either come through our grants program or been working a long time at figuring out how to create an interoperable application. And so, one of them certainly, worth highlighting is Squid, which is, delivering cross-chain native swaps on top of Axelar. And so actually that example I gave before of how do you create this one-click on-ramp despite maybe not holding a native wallet or native asset, that's actually something that's going to be able to deliver. And Axelar is just the infrastructure that's helping to power the cross-chain swap taking place there. So I think everyone look out. Squid should be reaching Mainnet very soon. And as soon as we have generalized message passing, ubiquitously across the network, I think we see a lot of traction for that application.
Awesome. Always great to check out new projects. James, for our last question, I'd love to hear your thoughts and also have Greg share any of his thoughts on one last final thing. We recently spoke to one of our guests about how diversity is critical to scale and adoption in Web3, but that's probably not the only thing that's vital. What I'd like to ask you is how critical do you believe interoperability is for Web3 to scale? How do you encourage it? How will it impact the evolution of Web3? And how does this tie into a very exciting announcement you guys recently made?
I mean, we absolutely think it's critical, of course. There is a ceiling on Web3 users and what everyone kind of talks about, getting that next million, billion users on here. As long as, the infrastructure is kind of clunky as it is now, it's always going to be technologists that really have maybe a passion for this, that are willing to jump through those loops. But how do we create something more similar to Web 2, where the relationship is between users and applications, and the networking and the routing that takes place, behind the scenes has been abstracted away. And that's how we saw mass adoption of the internet and Web 2.0. And that's what we need for Web 3.0. So we absolutely think interoperability is critical to getting there. We're hoping to help solve the problem.
You recently said that you guys announced Interop Summit in Miami. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? What's going on there? When's it going on? How does it relate to interoperability and its importance to scale Web3?
Absolutely. We want to bring developers together to learn and to build, thinking about, what the major issues and blockers are when it comes to building, complete interoperable applications. And so this is going to be really the first gathering for builders that are creating dApps that span the whole of Web3. And we want to bring people together from every ecosystem for workshops, panels, and some celebration of a multi-chain future. And our thought behind it is it's really about the Interop Summit, not necessarily the Axelar Summit, that, boats rise. For everyone that's trying to build a multi-chain future, we want you there. We want you talking about your product, your service, how you're attempting to solve the issue. And we're really excited about it. February 20th to 22nd at the Fontainebleau Resort in Miami Beach. Everyone can purchase early bird tickets now. But super, super excited. And I actually hope to have Greg speaking there. So that's my invitation, Greg.
Awesome. When is it again? Right.
February 20th to 22nd.
Yeah, I should be able to do that. That'd be great.
Everyone heard that. Now he's committed.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I'll make sure he's there. Miami's my hometown. Greg's got to go. He's going.
Also,
That's
another
awesome.
thing I think we didn't talk. I don't think you guys know about it, but we're actually getting prepared. I mean, kind of talked about it, but we haven't really put a lot of fuel on it. That we're looking at supporting USDC payments on Akash very soon. So, I mean, we talked about stable payments, but I think we all internally kind of like came to consensus that USDC would be great, and it'll be great. I mean, obviously, Axelar is going to be the USDC enablement for Akash. So, lots of good things coming as well.
That's awesome. I think that that's probably the last thing I would push, which is related to what Greg's saying, which is Axelar enabling composable USDC. And we posted an article, guest feature on Circle that also would suggest that everybody checks out, that talks about how we'll be working with their CCTP cross-chain transfer protocol. Really, really exciting stuff.
Yep. Awesome.
That's awesome, guys. So, James, where can we go to learn more about Axelar? Where do we follow you guys? How do we keep up?
Absolutely. Everyone can head axelar.network for one. You can join us on Discord and Twitter, Axelar Core. And for developers out there that are really interested in learning how to build and using our API, suggest you check out docs.axelar.dev.
Awesome. With that, let's open up our AMA with questions for Greg and our guest. We have our first question from the happy investor. I know I saw him here on the call, but he may not be able to unmute. Oh, there he is. Hey there, happy to see you again. Welcome. We'll get you set up here. If anything's wrong with your mic, no worries. We've got your question here. We'll give him a second there to connect. Hello, how are you? Go ahead, happy investor. Oh, seems you might be unable to unmute. So,
how about
no,
now?
there he goes. Yeah, we're good. We can hear you loud and clear. Happy to have you.
Sorry. Hi, Nadia. Hi, Greg. Hi, James. It's very nice to say hello to Greg and Anil a month ago in New York. I just had a question about the analytics metrics. They seem quite flat over the last year. Is this bear market stuff? Is this the slow transition from Web 2 to Web 3, which will obviously take many, many years? Or are you concerned by this sort of lack of adoption? Or I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the metrics for the past year.
We'll give Greg a chance there to unmute.
I'm sorry. Hey, good question, happy investor. The question to summarize is Akash active applications has been essentially trending sideways, right? That means there are net new applications are essentially zero, right? That means so there are like applications that are, leaving Akash, and the applications that are coming Akash are basically the same. And the reason for that is, we have several reasons, right? And before we get into reasons, am I concerned? Not really, because these metrics are so early that quantitativeness doesn't really tell us the full story. And active applications are not the most accurate way of measuring the adoption, right? So that comes to like, okay, so why are people churning? Is, like I said, there is a general lack of engagement infrastructure. The biggest reason why people leave Akash is they run out of money. Like, it's really that dumb. They run out of money in their that they're supposed to deposit. For those of you that don't know how Akash works, is it's a prepaid system, right? So you essentially fund a deployment by transferring AKT from your wallet to the Akash deployment wallet, and you get X amount of days. Usually, I think, like, if you do 5 AKT for my blog, I remember you get about 15 to 20 days before you should re-up. And people forget to re-up, and the deployment goes out basically, it becomes inactive, and then that causes a whole lot of like frustration. People think Akash is not working, and then they leave. So that's been our biggest like challenge to solve. The way to solve is like, hey, in an ideal world, you'd be like, I don't care about like re-upping, just take my credit card and do it, right? I mean, that's how you're used to in the real world, real in the sense the Web 2 world. We don't have credit cards in Web 3. We don't have emails in Web 3. So how are we solving it? Through several mechanisms, right? So one is, obviously, there's a community-led effort. Cloudmos is being one of the key contributors and key innovators in this area. They've recently launched alerts. Alerts hopefully will let us churn a lot less, right? So so hopefully we'll see a lot of improvement there. And second big reason for adoption is, and this is more of an inhibitor, is lack of stable payments, right? The lack of certainty, right? So what that means is, if AKT on both on provider side and the payer side, on the tenant side, so there is no sustainable way to either pay for stuff or earn stuff on provider side. So that creates a lot of friction when it comes to like renewing Akash and whatnot. So we're solving that by introducing stable payments, and that's potentially coming up in the next mainnet, right? And third is just a lack of automation or lack of knowing how to automate for fault tolerance, right? So a lot of times when people deploy an Akash application, they optimize for a single instance instead of having a threshold that's ideal for fault tolerant events. Like ideally, my blog, for example, it's been running on Akash forever, but it runs on 3 different regions. So one of the provider goes down, there are 2 other regions that can pick it up from. But most people are not aware on how to do this multi-regional deployment. And for that, it's a lot of the user interface, right? So yes, Akash has been, while we've been getting new applications, we've also been losing applications. So that's why the numbers are flat. It's not because we're not getting adoption, it's just the loss and the churn is fairly high. And it's one of those things people don't talk about in churn, and this is not only a Akash problem, it's across the board. Of course, naturally when the adoption has obviously been slower in a bear market because less people are aware of Akash, less people want to hold Akash tokens in a bear market, and there's that contributing factor as well. But I think churn has been a larger contributing factor for a flat adoption curve. Does that answer your question?
That's pretty good. Thanks, Greg.
And there's a lot of efforts, right? So to increase adoption, yeah, first there are 2 ways we can primarily at a high level we can categorize the efforts we do. One category is Akash Overclock Labs as a company pushing forward, right? What are we going to do? Well, we identify key areas like churn, notifications, and whatnot. For credit cards, we're actually if you remember the last mainnet, we introduced the idea of authorized spend. So the idea of authorized spend is to allow decoupled payments from operational accounts. So with that, we'll be able to, actually have credit cards and custodial service that lets you pay cash deployments using credit card, right? Now we'll have USDC enabled very, very soon. So you'll have a lot more sustainable, consistent payment mechanism for Akash that is very similar to how you would use a Web3 cloud. Again, having credit cards means it's not fully Web3, so it is a custodial solution, but it solves the problem. So we're building that. The first version of this system that we think about credit cards is going to be out in another 3 to 4 weeks. It's called Overclock Console. It's a product built by Overclock Labs. So that gives you an idea as to how you can, simply deploy using Akash. It's a opinionated deployment mechanism. So you should see a lot of improvements. And that also solves for user interfaces, right? So your Overclock Labs is building a user interface that'll essentially it's great for launching blockchain nodes, but also gives you a better ability to have multiple regions and whatnot. So you're going to be able to solve this fault tolerant scenarios really about with Overclock Console. So there's a lot of effort happening from the core team, but more effort is happening from our ecosystem, right? So we're seeing Cloudmos obviously doing incredible updates. We're seeing Speron, we're seeing Vixillo, and soon we'll see Third Web and the others integrating really deeply from a demand side, right? So this is I think that is going to start. So as these integrations are we'll get into productions, we're going to start seeing quite a lot of adoption come from these ecosystem players as well. And from the demand side, there's a lot more happening, right? So and we're super excited from a GPU standpoint, right? So why? Because so far, Akash is just really trying to play the parity game, right? The parity game in the sense can we give capabilities that the current cloud provides? So every other feature we launch, we're trying to get capabilities or parity, right? With GPUs, we'll start seeing superiority, right? That means for the first time, you'll see Akash deliver something the current cloud does not have, which is an open market for GPUs, right? So there we'll start seeing a little drift off from this parity game to superiority game where, hey, we're offering GPUs for 20% cheaper, and there's ubiquitous amount of GPUs all the way from miners, proof of stake miners, moving to proof of work miners, after the post merge, moving to proof of stake, to Max having very powerful GPUs. And so we're sort of getting into like this incredible new area of superiority from the cloud. So that will contribute heavily for adoption. So yes, the numbers right now are very early stage. It should not be a thing that should be a point of focus, but rather look at who is using and how they're using and how one of these players are going to take Akash to exponential. If you think about it, if you had to like drop parallels to the the traditional cloud, Amazon, if you look at their growth trajectory, it hasn't been, a linear one. It's always non-linear, right? So you'll have like slow like growth for a long time, and then you'll have some critical event that takes you to the next level. A critical event that took Amazon to the next level is Netflix. You remember Netflix was the first company. Basically, Netflix was a small company back then. I mean, that's a startup. Essentially, they said, "Hey, look, we're going to use Amazon to get a competitive advantage when it comes to streaming, scaling streaming, right?" And they did a good job. So that one story put Amazon on a different planet, right? So similarly, Akash, the story is going to be one of the users on Akash, one of the companies that are built on Akash, doing incredible things to get a competitive advantage over their competitors that are using the traditional cloud. And those stories are going to get Akash, and then you'll see exponential. So I think we're gonna see GPUs, I think, really deliver that Netflix for Akash. So yes, a lot of the metrics right now don't really matter because they're tiny, they're small. Any marginal change is going to be like, it's great we can celebrate all the marginal changes, but hey, if tomorrow like I don't know, Chia miners decided to like run on Akash, suddenly the active workloads go like double and your AKT spend doubles up. Those really doesn't matter because they're very, very tiny, when it compared to what the potential is. And it's super important for us to stay focused on these critical use cases, the Netflix of the Web3, I'm not saying music streaming, but I'm trying to say like the Netflix moment we had to optimize for.
Great.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. And all those initiatives, the stablecoin payments, the improved automation, the improved user interface, and this is all coming over the next few months, I guess.
Oh, well, not a few months. I mean, sure, if you have magic. Well, so the next few months will be a little bit optimistic.
Okay.
Next few quarters, right? So we need there's a lot of things in order to get to parity and superiority. So you need stable payments, you need GPUs, you need observability, you need automation, you need identity management, you need access control. So with these set of features, we'll have parity with the cloud, right? So that is, on the roadmap, essentially, we'll be delivering, but we're not like, we're not saying that you need all these for like getting like, functionality, but I think GPUs, which is next, right? Next on the roadmap after Mainnet 4, GPUs are the foundation for I think the key adoption, right? So we can have GPUs without having access control, for example. You know what I mean? Like so, like these are, even though it'd be nice to have access control for the other workloads, observability for other workloads, but GPUs alone will deliver quite a lot of functionality and quite a lot of adoption for Akash, right? So yes, all these features are required for us to get parity with the cloud and then comfortably go to a big major, Fortune 10 company or Fortune 50 company and be like, hey, move all your workloads to Akash, because now you have all the capabilities that Akash that you need to run, right? So, and that's not the next few months. I mean, it's going to be next few years, right? So, but next few quarters would be a better one. Yeah, it's on the roadmap though.
Awesome. A lot of interesting stuff on the roadmap for sure. Thanks for the answer.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Happy Investor. Always great to have you. We are just about out of time, but I did want to acknowledge two other questions that came in. Marty OG Greg actually answered your question in detail during his updates. Marty OG had asked, what are the main upgrades that are being made in Mainnet 4 for Akash Network? And for Ray, Greg just touched on your question as well. He had asked about our long-term plans. How, or perhaps through big partnerships, do we plan on passing our product onto normal or especially non-crypto people? And
I can
Greg,
expand
you
and
already,
summarize the question,
yeah,
the answer to the question.
yeah,
So, I
yeah.
mean, I talked about it, touched about it in a few separate ways, but really, our strategy is, like, I think, like, can be categorized into three main phases, you know. So, three main phases to mass adoption, right? And this is multi-year strategy. It's not like, you know, a bunch of partnerships here and there will get us to the next level. No, it's a multi-year strategy, it's a long-term strategy. The first phase was foundation and security, right? So Akash Network being a decentralized network needs to be secure at a fundamental level, a consensus level, at availability level, and it should be resilient. It should function. It should not go down. It should be secure, non-hackable, yada, yada, yada. We've achieved that with Mainnet 1. We were able to lay a foundation. Akash was the first IBC chain to launch. So we were first and first. We started working with Cosmos in 2018. And we launched the IBC enabled chain in 2020. And Osmosis, if you remember, listed Akash when they launched Osmosis. Akash was the first blockchain that supported. So that the liquidity and all that were established for Akash. So that we can move on to the second phase of adoption, which is parity, right? So right now we're in platform parity phase, right? Platform parity in the sense, when we launched Akash, we didn't wait for all the features to be built, but we launched with ephemeral state management, really optimized for running state-light workloads. In the sense, your application doesn't have a database. It's great to run Akash. The moment you have a database, it gets complicated because there's no storage. So, and then we launched the storage, right? And now we're launching IP addresses. Next, we're launching, GPUs, and soon after we'll be launching access control, observability, automation, and managed backend services and whatnot. So these set of features will get us to parity with the cloud in the sense that we can comfortably go to large companies and have them move all their workloads or some of the workloads to Akash without having to compromise on Akash. So Akash doesn't have all the bells and whistles, and Amazon and the Googles have. I mean, Akash does a few things really well. Obviously, it doesn't have auto scaling. It doesn't have a lot of these normal things you expect. It doesn't have automation, right? It doesn't have, a good way to stream events, right? So, all these things that you would expect in a traditional cloud, Akash doesn't have. And that's okay. We're not going to wait for all these features to be built to be able to get users and ship product, or else we'll never ship product. So, and it's such a complex, complicated machine to build a cloud from scratch. You just can't expect to have everything on day one to launch, right? So once we get to parity, the goal is to support all the things the cloud supports and much more. So much more in the sense like an open GPU marketplace, an open IP address marketplace, an open access protocol, right? So overall, and then we get into this thing called superiority. So by the time you're done with parity, you can expect at least 1,000 different providers, all having, that means 1,000 different regions. Akash will be the most distributed cloud in the world, and that's fully open, fully permissionless, and fully self-sovereign with all the capabilities that you would need in a traditional cloud, right? So that gets into possibilities like innovation beyond our imagination. Like things, what can you do with thousands of regions across the world? You can do low-level latency, for example. You can do like gaming, cloud gaming, right? You could do a lot of the things that you couldn't do right now with Akash, right? So that's at a high level. So as we keep like delivering these plans, we start targeting workloads. The first obvious, set of market target has been Cosmos because we are local. This is our ecosystem. This is our people don't need to change a lot of the behavior to use Akash, right? So you have a capital wallet, you should be able to use Akash, right? So we're delivering a first product that actually uses Kepler Wallet for the web to be able to deploy workloads with Overclock Console. We have Cloudmos and all that, doing a great job there. So that opens up, obviously, Cosmos. You can do other non-Cosmos stuff, but not in a great way. Now we have IP addresses and persistent storage. That allows us to do nodes like Ethereum nodes and unlock the Ethereum and Solana ecosystem in Urbit, right? So now we get into a larger Web3, right? So far, I believe like about 25% of Cosmos uses Akash in one form or the other. And as we get into the second phase, we'll see similar patterns in Web3, right? So the next few months, maybe in a year out, we're going to be hyper-focused on going beyond Cosmos and going into the broader Web3 ecosystem. After that, with GPU unlock, with GPU enablement, we'll unlock machine learning. Now we get into territory of this massive underserved market that's struggling. I talk to people from big cloud providers to small ones to everybody, and no, everybody is struggling to get GPUs, right? GPUs are still 5x 5x price from their market, right? So it's still very hard to get GPUs, and Akash is the only way that can tap into unused GPU capacity for GPUs in the sense general purpose. These are not mining GPUs. These are general purpose GPUs that allows you to run TensorFlow or machine learning applications, right? This is the first time an open platform can do that, right? So we'll be able to unlock high performance workloads. And after that, as we build up the rest of the features, by the time we are done with parity, we'll be able to support serverless, low code, no code capabilities, right? So now we get into the second phase. That means now we can support all the use cases way better than the current cloud. And now what you can do is superiority, right? So if you had to like put Akash in a larger place, Akash is the idea of a super cloud. A super cloud is a coined term by Cornell University in 2016 that essentially talks about, look, cloud, and this has been our thesis for a long time. We wrote our papers and whatnot. I mean, we talked about super cloud in our 2020 white paper. The idea is as cloud gets, as users start, from the cloud, start scaling, it becomes like very prohibitive, right? So that's why companies like Hey.com and all these like, Dropbox and all these talk about like how cloud is not the ideal way to like bring infrastructure at a certain scale. They tend to move to their own data centers. But with data centers, you don't get the scalable, you don't get the flexibility to scale, right? Putting a new box in a data center takes you forever. It takes you like a month or 2 month activity, right? So data centers are great to get sovereignty, but they're not good to scale, right? So that's why Akash, the idea of a super cloud came about, where you can have a heterogeneous resource set and give a homogeneous layer that addresses all the functionality of the cloud, from deployment, scheduling, to fault tolerance, to observability, to automation, and all the good things that you need to a cloud at a much higher level of abstraction. Gives you a homogeneous way to do that in a heterogeneous resource set. That's what a super cloud is. Akash is the first commercial implementation of a super cloud, right? So this is essentially the cloud evolved. How you think about cloud in a modern sense is not how you think about cloud in the Web 2 sense. You got to rethink these things. And Akash has taken a very innovative approach and essentially implemented the first super cloud. So that's how we take on the mainstream, and say it's a multi-year, multi-pronged strategy, if you understand.
Thanks so much, Greg. With that, let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us, James. Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much to Greg for joining us on Spaces today and for taking time to answer questions. And a huge thank you to all of you guys for joining today or listening to this later on. Before we get together next time, Greg, anything to add?
That's good for now. It's a great.
Awesome. Okay, so guys, let's keep in touch between spaces right now. Go sign up for our newsletter at akashnetwork.substack.com. In the About page, Zach's got a link to the blog. Check out our latest post and get to know our community better, and check out insider spotlights on Delray and Rodri. We're excited to announce Mainnet 4. Keep an eye out for updates surrounding Mainnet 4 in the coming weeks. Don't forget to head over to Telegram on Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, where Smart Stake Validators will join us for an AMA with a 300 AKT prize pool for the best questions. On Tuesdays, don't forget to hop over to Discord for quizzes at 8 a.m. Pacific with 200 AKT in rewards and 5 winners. Join us next week, Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific for our next Akash Weekly Spaces with Greg. Tap that set reminder button as soon as we post it. Be sure to try Akash for yourself. Check out our documentation to deploy at docs.akash.network. If you would like a little bit more support during your deployment, join our Discord group. You'll meet insiders and others there to help.